Hey guys, today we're talking about Bystials. So, specifically, we're talking about how degenerate Bystials actually are. So, as you can see, every single Bystial aside from Baldrake is now limited, pretty much, right? Well, the ones that can summon themselves as a quick effect, anyways. So, yeah, Bystials, well, there's no other way for me to really put it aside from they're degenerate. So, even with all these limits, you still technically have six Bystials that you can play. Well, as like hand traps and engine, they kind of double, right? As both. And technically, if you're going first, you can run three of Libellion as well, so you have quite high odds of drawing like just a Bystial to begin with. And are Bystials searchable technically with some sort of engine? Yes. Yeah, yes, they are. So, notably with Dragon Link, um, Seifert can actually be used to add back Bystial Lubellion from your graveyard to the hand, and you just have to like essentially Foolish Burial the missing piece. So whichever it is, like either you have Seifert and no Lubellion, or Lubellion and no Seifert, and you can put the one you're missing, right? And you can easily do that with Ravine. So if I were to add Bystial Lubellion, how much advantage do I get off of this exactly? Well, let's go over it then. So let's activate Bystial Lubellion, adding Magnamut. Bystial Lubellion is now in the graveyard. I can now activate Magma, and then afterwards I will use Bystial Lubellion to tribute Bystial Magnamut, which then allows me to use Lubellion effect. So I can grab just Branded Regained, I can grab Branded Beast. So there's advantages to both. So I can get some card advantage later. Like, this is going to net me, at minimum, right now, one draw. Later, it might net, like, two. And also, Magnemite will be able to grab another dragon for me. And of course, this doesn't just add from, just, deck. This can add from graveyard as well. So it can grab, like, a Druis Worm if it gets into the graveyard for whatever reason. Like, assuming maybe I milled or Serenir ended up in the graveyard somehow, then I'd be able to send, Regained and then have Beast active. So then, keeping in mind this is all one card, right? Lubellion, Magma, then, yeah. Magma adds probably like Druis Worm in this case, assuming I randomly milled a Serenir, but not really necessary. Assuming that is the case, I have 2 points of removal right here, okay? And I add quite a quite a few cards. So, Branded Beast effect will be able to pop one of my opponent's cards in the main phase, and the send for that will probably be Druis Worm. And if you do send Druis Worm for this, Druis Worm can then target a special summon monster your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. So that's two pieces of removal, and then assuming you have Branded Regained, your opponent special summoned at some point, obviously, if you're activating Druis Worm. So Branded Regained now is going to trigger the effect to special summon a bestial monster. So in this case, you'll probably choose Magma. And Magma is special summoned, and this is only on special summon. This effect does not trigger if Magma is normal summoned for whatever reason. I don't get it, but yeah. If we special summon Magma here off of the effect of Regained, we're going to be able to add a dragon monster from our deck to the hand. And also, with Druis Worm, we banished a light or dark monster to special summon it, so we're going to draw off of Branded Regained. So, off of this one card, let's see, we add this card, we can add this card, and then we potentially add like another card after this. And also we draw one card. So technically this would be two cards with Serenir, if that is the case. So, but we can just do this like pretty much every single turn. And yeah, this is not really super easy to play around. The way you play around this is by drawing evenly matched or like Harpy's Feather Duster or something like that to just get rid of this back row. But even if you do that, you still have to deal with technically Bystial Druis Worm, which is annoying. And of course, this is just like not your opponent's end board typically. This would only be the case if they're extremely bricked because they're running engine aside from like Bystials usually. Like just for example, Sprite. There is a build that can utilize like Sprite with Bystials, but not as well anymore now that Chaos Ruler is banned, so don't have to worry about that specifically. And also worth mentioning is Branded Regained. This allows you to special summon any Bystial monster. Bystial Dispatter, this is a Bystial monster. So if we throw in Bystial Dispatter in the equation, it gets pretty messy, right? So you can target one Banish Light or Dark monster, special summon it to your field. So you can just keep doing that. So just for example, let's say I want to special summon Bystial Magma. I use it as material, maybe for a Link summon or something. Synchro, it doesn't really matter. Maybe I use it as to summon the Bystial Lubellion, but it really doesn't matter. And then during the end phase, we can grab a guy, let's say Baldrake, for example. We banish the Magma in our graveyard, so that will trigger Branded Regain, and we can draw. Then next turn, we can Bystial Dispatter, summoning Bystial Magnamut, and then this can grab us another guy again, either from graveyard or deck, and that's quite a bit of advantage you can build up off of there. And of course, this does shuffle back as well, in case you actually want to search from deck again. Might as well. So shuffle back, draw, add the thing you shuffled back to hand anyways, so it can get to the point where this is kind of happening, right? But I mean, this isn't the degenerate part I really wanted to talk about. This is just standard Bystial stuff. This is just Bystial being kind of strong against like light and dark decks, especially those that really use the graveyard, I guess. So like against Exorcister, which is a light deck, this isn't going to do that much for you, considering like banishing might trigger like the effect to special summon a Exorcister from like by XYZing on top of just one monster. That can happen, you know? So not necessarily the best in that case, but still, if we just look at just Bystial Magma as a hand trap by itself, special summon Bystial Magma will banish one of our opponent's monsters, probably, right? So that's essentially a DD Crow, and then you can add another guy. So let's say we add Bystial Lubellion. So Bystial Lubellion then adds Bystial Druis Worm. Bystial Druis Worm will then DD Crow another one of our opponent's monsters, essentially, right? So we'll banish another one of our opponent's light or dark monsters. So we, well, depending on how impactful this is, we banish two of our opponent's probably combo pieces, ideally, right? But even if not, still whatever, right? So then we have Bystial Druis Worm, which we can now tribute with Lubellion, and then Lubellion effect can activate from our deck Branded Beast, and then we can Branded Beast using Bystial Lubellion and sending this. And Magnamut might still be on the field after all this, so this is just material for our summoning, essentially, as well. So off of just this one Magnamut, let's recap over what we do. So we have two pieces of removal, so one with Druis Worm, one with Branded Beast. We banish two of our opponent's guys. So if we just put this down as like card advantage, every single one of these interactions, and we also search, of course, and we special summon guys. So that's like +4 or 5 off of like Bystial Magnamut, essentially, which is just a lot off of just one single card. So yeah, that in of itself is pretty strong, and yet this isn't the degenerate thing I want to talk about quite yet. So this is all strong, you know, and all that, but yo, can it get worse? It can. So here's the thing that people aren't using Bystials for right now, but I mean, who's to say if you can't do this in the future, you know? This might become a lot more reasonable to do. But let's pretend we're in a world where Bystials aren't limited. I believe that in the TCG they might not be. They weren't for a while, so as of currently, I'm not really sure. But yeah, I'm not gonna bother checking. So yeah. So let's say we have 3 of Magnemite, right? And in TCG land, we also have 3 of Dimension Shifter. All right. And you have 1 of Called by the Grave. But let's go with Master Duel ratios for Called by. All right. Because I think Gamma is also limited 1. So it about rounds out to about this, I guess. But in Master Duel, let's say our opponent opens Bystial Magma, or literally any Bystial, alongside Dimension Shifter. So, with how Bystials work, they're already automatically going to be playing around Gamma, so Gamma is not useful here. But Shifter is very strong in the sense that even if you are allowed to do a little bit of your plays, most of the time you won't be able to do much more. So, for example, let's say you can actually use the Bellstar effect and search Sinful Spoils. So you set Sinful Spoils. At this point in time, let's assume for whatever reason you sent a Dark Monster. Like, let's go with Harp Horror. Okay, so to activate the Bellstar, you sent Harp Horror. I will now activate, for example, Bystial Magnemite on Harp. So that's a potential with just that's something you can do with just Bystials, right? But that's not the play that's Degenerate. The Degenerate play, of course, is to activate Dimension Shifter, and then if you were to attempt to call by it, so I'm going to wait till next chain, and I'll hold Bystial Magnemite for later, if you don't, right? But in general, right? I will Shifter now, so if you have called by, if you magically open called by, you better have opened both of them, otherwise you're going to get shifted, right? And it's probably going to be GG. So, Shifter effect, if you've called by, attempt called by on Shifter, Bystial Magma effect, banishing Shifter. So the only way you can deal with this now is to either negate Bystial Magma, or you can drop a second Called by the Grave on Dimension Shifter. Those are your 2 options to stop Dimension Shifter from resolving, and this is of course on your own turn. Keeping in mind that there's pretty much like no other cards in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh that can really stop this shifter. So if you're playing like pretty much any deck and you just summon 1 monster, you are open to getting completely screwed by this play. And there is very little you can do about this, honestly. So this is very much like a good luck kind of situation. Well, yeah. So in TCG, then, you have 1 called by, so assuming same play in TCG, yeah. Now you don't even have the luxury or the option of drawing the second called by to deal with this. So yeah, that just sounds like it sucks. But whatever. So that's pain, and yeah. It gets worse, because for example, with Bystial Magma, I can resolve this in the end phase if I want, so assuming you can somehow put removal on the board, or you have a Raigeki or something, it doesn't really affect me that much. So I can actually banish Dimension Shifter, and then we'll say we can do, at this point, Bystial Lubellion, and then be added for next turn, so I can't actually activate Bystial Lubellion if I activate Magnemite here, so this isn't a play. So I would likely add like Serenur, Druisworm, or Baldrake for the following turn if it exists. It might not though, but these are at least discards at this point. But like you might be wondering, what deck could potentially run this combo as of right now? So as of right now, this combo has some anti-synergy in the sense that like Bystials and Macrocosmos don't work that well together. Like, it's kind of true, unless you get access to Regained, in which case you're just netting free draws. And you're also able to build up some advantage as well. But the big thing here is now, what if you're playing something that is already using the Bystials specifically for their banish effects, like Thunder Dragons? So if we were playing Thunder Dragons with this combo, of course it all makes sense now, right? So under macro, this part of the engine is completely unaffected, so this would work fairly well, right? So we have like three of these, three of these. So with how Thunder Dragons work, though, it's kind of jank in that if we activate Thunder Dragon Dark while under macro, this doesn't actually do anything for us. It's still just the effect to add Thunder Dragon Dark, because you can only use one of your Thunder Dragon effects essentially per turn. You cannot activate both. So these are not our starters. Instead, well, these are combo pieces. So instead, we have still stuff like Aloof Lupine, we have Necroface, and we have just cards that can send these guys. Well, not send. It would more likely be discard for effect. So, for example, here's a good one, I think, right? Maybe. We'll have to check what this says exactly. Send one light or dark monster from your hand to the graveyard. Yeah, this doesn't work. So Chaos Base, this will not work for this. We do have also the option to, well, kind of worth mentioning is if you drew the second shifter, you actually don't have anything in the graveyard because you use Bystial Magma, so you can just drop shifter again, which is just really annoying. But I don't think that will advance the game state necessarily. But also, let's see. Is this the right one? Battery Man Solar, I believe. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send one Thunder monster from your deck to the graveyard. And this is for effect, so you can do this under macro. So if we just look at a basic version of this list, this is one option, right? So let's say we have 3 Solar, 3 Aloof Lupine. We have 6 starters here that just work perfectly fine under macro, and if we had Chaos Space, for example, we could discard Thunder Dragon Dark to add like Bystial Lubellion, and then Bystial Lubellion to grab like Magma banishing Thunder Dragon Dark. That would be a decent like turn 1 option for us. And of course we have Thunder Dragon Colossus and stuff. So yeah, we could drop that. And we're just doing fine. And the macro effect, if it happens, it just is to shaft our opponent. So right now, this isn't even that great of a combo, but conceptually, if this ever it becomes relevant, though, you can clearly see how annoying this would be to play against. Like, what are you supposed to do against this? It just doesn't seem fun to play against at all. So now you're getting Macrocosmos with even less counterplay. Great. And just for extra, like, just insult to injury, I suppose. Since you're getting shifted here, assuming you have Droll and Lockbird perhaps, or Maxi in your hand. So if you chain to Bystial Magma, Maxi, you'll at least draw a card, but that, that's it. You'll draw one card. You go completely even. Next turn, you cannot Maxi because Shifter will still be active. So the macro effect is still active. Droll and Lockbird, this is also not able to be active, so that's pretty annoying. But if we just get rid of this and just look once again at just Bystials as standalone, these cards just do a whole lot. And they kind of like shaft every single like dark or light deck, and they just randomly do it, I guess. So if you run them as engine, they're a lot better just generally, because of course not every deck is a light or dark deck. Just for example, we have Diabellstar and Snake Eye, which is primarily a fire deck. Diabellstar is technically a dark, but it wouldn't matter like at all if Diabellstar got banished. So yeah, if you're running a bunch of Bystials hand traps, these would be good against like something like a Tearlament, for example, but not that great against like Diabellstar, right? So there's that aspect of Bystials. That is the only fair part of Bystials, because technically if these just banish any monsters, these would be like completely broken with like no justification, in my opinion at least, right? So yeah, Bystials pretty damn disgusting, right? But yeah, honestly, it could get worse from here still because these guys, when they're engine, they're even more annoying for dark decks because specifically like, well, if you're playing a dark or light deck, right? If Bystials are engine, that means the deck is just running them anyways, and these aren't technically the hand traps they're running, right? So like notably in branded, these are much stronger because you actually do have easier access to Bystials to some extent as well. So notably, we can activate like uh, Bystial Lubellion after we send it off of Branded Fusion, and then that can grab us Regained, it can grab us Branded Lost, it can grab us Branded Beast, and that's just pretty annoying. So I can grab a Monster Negate, it can help trigger Albion. It does a lot, actually. And they just sometimes double as hand traps, but especially if you're playing a dark or light deck, right? These are actually hand traps. So that's a bit frustrating to deal with. Not something you can really do much about except play a non dark or light deck, but like just a lot of the decks that get released, well, a lot of good ones as well, are primarily going to be dark or light decks, I believe. So if we go URSR here, we have Phantom Knights, dark or light there. We have Belstar, which is a dark, but not really relevant here. We have Blue Eyes, which this is actually relevant for, because Blue Eyes Jet Dragon actually, I believe, cannot activate its effect unless there is a Blue Eyes White Dragon in the graveyard or on field, I believe. So that's randomly annoying. And also your guys, I believe, do have some graveyard interaction that you need to do, like with your stones. So yeah, that Bystials kind of stop that. And then DD, Dark Light. Well, or I guess this is just a dark deck. And then we have well, this is not really relevant because they're penned. Dreaming Malaria, I don't think that one's relevant. Gold Pride, that one is not relevant. Unless you're playing Punk, it sometimes is relevant then. Very rarely though, because the Punks are Earth. They do have Dark or Light as well, so for very specific combos it does matter, but otherwise most of the time doesn't really matter. For Invoked, I guess Suffer, because you're never going to do much with Alistair then. But general idea is, yeah. A lot of dark or light decks also play using the graveyard. Like, you gotta use the graveyard for your combo, so that's just extra pain, you know? Just pain and suffering, right? So you have to deal with DD Crow, and this is part of their engine as well. So this will never kind of be a brick, right? Let's assume, for example, like we have Droll and Lockbird, right? So Droll and Lockbird can be considered weaker than like Bestial Magma in this sense. So if we're thinking about it like as just purely a hand trap, right? Just looking from this perspective, Droll and Lockbird is completely useless on the first turn and doesn't build up towards anything, assuming you open this on the first turn, right? On the second turn, assuming you went first, right? Then Droll and Lockbird becomes relevant, right? So that's still fine. Droll and Lockbird, however, assuming you're going second with Droll, this is a hand trap, right? Well, even if you're going first, this can be completely dead, assuming your opponent just isn't playing anything that can be drolled. So, for example, your opponent is playing Orchist, for example. I don't think Orchist even adds any cards to hand. They do have uh, the Orcus draw card, which is the only Orcus card, I believe, that actually draws, like, at all, or adds a card from deck to hand, technically. So that's the only time you can activate Droll, but that's the only search or add they do, so Droll completely useless. It's not stopping anything. Uh, Bystial Magnemite in the same like kind of like perspective. If, for example, your opponent's playing a fire deck, you can't use Bystial Magnemite's effect to like banish any of your opponent's light or dark monsters to kind of stop their combo with this. But it's still engine. This can be a body. This can search you another body later, right? So it's still engine, assuming you're going first. This is still going to be relevant because you can use this as a combo piece to strengthen your endboard, and also grab a Druid Swarm for next turn because why not? So much stronger because this is not just a hand trap. This is also this is also engine, right? This is less engine for certain decks that shouldn't be playing Bystials in the first place, in my opinion, but in general, Bystials are very strong for this reason, notably, right? So let's say I'm playing against, for example, uh, Pendulum Magicians, right? Uh, yeah, Bestial Magnemite's not really going to be doing much against my opponent there, but I can still special summon Bestial Magnemite to like run over their Apollosa, or I can use Bestial Magnemite to make Dispatter on the first turn, and that's still mileage. Whereas, for example, I don't know, so the Drone Lockbird is not like relevant as a hand trap here. So let's say DD Crow. DD Crow, I can't normal summon for like anything. It's just usually not really used like that, and it's not too good to use it like that. And I have no targets worth banishing. I guess I can try to banish a spell or trap in my opponent's graveyard in order to stop Selene from having enough counters potentially, but I don't think that's even possible, right? Let me think. Yeah, it's not, because scales count as spells and traps, and then usually you grab what's it called? It's like no. Here we go. Star Pendulum Graph. You usually grab this because it grabs you like another card anyway, so it's just free stuff essentially. So Star Pendulum Graph. You usually grab this, and if you do grab this, of course, this counts as a spell, right? So you should at least have like 3 for Selene, no matter what. And you're going to link off Selene for like an Apo or something later anyway, so doesn't really matter. But yeah. In general, Bystials just do a lot for like just technically a hand trap. That's also an engine piece, so it's pretty insane. If we were to just look at, for example, another hand trap, but let's just go with a basic hand trap, right? Ash Blossom Joy Spring. If we just look at what Ash Blossom Joy Spring does, right? Technically, if we look at these as standalone, right? Let's say our opponent is playing Orchist, perhaps. Uh, well, Ash Blossom Joy Spring, this might not be enough to stop like an Orchist play, right? So let's say, for example, our opponent has both Harp Horror, Gearsu, and also Orcus Nightmare. So Orcus Nightmare in graveyard, Harp Horror in graveyard, and Gearsu is on field, and it would have sent one of the two. So here in this point in time, we have Ash Blossom Joy Spring. And yeah, this isn't enough to really stop our opponent's play. They should still be able to end up doing stuff, right? So Bystial Magma in the same situation, right? We also can't completely stop our opponent's play, but we'll probably try banishing our Horror here, and then or Nightmare. It's about the same no matter which we pick. So whatever. And then Bystial Magnuma will be able to then search us Lubellion, and then Lubellion searches Druisworm, and of course, then we get 2 points of removal here, right? And we can also back stuff in our opponent's graveyard. So, for example, notably against like Orcus in this situation, right? We can then also wait on like wait on this Druisworm, and then remove our opponent's. Well, actually, we wait on Druisworm, so we just tribute Magnuma with Lubellion, and then we can grab Branded Beast, and then do Branded Beast to pop. If our opponent tries to special summon, for example, a Dingirsu from the graveyard at this point in time, we should be able to just Druisworm, banish the Dingirsu so it can't summon, and then we, at this point, will have at least Bystial, Lubellion, Druisworm with 5 other cards in hand. So, yeah. And if we were to Ash Blossom Spring, yeah, that just trades for 1 card, and then we would have still 5 cards in hand, but we didn't build up random advantage for like breathing, I guess, like Bystial. So yeah, the amount of advantage you get off of Bystials is kind of nutty. Just when this is essentially a DD Crow effect, this searches a guy, which then searches you another guy, which then allows you to special summon another guy, and then this guy can special summon itself to grab you another card, which can just either let you summon more guys or remove some cards as 1 card as a quick effect on your opponent's turn. This is what it all builds up to. Great. Seems fair to me, I guess, yeah. And I mean, the only thing that I have against Bystial right now is just how generic it is. If it was a bit less generic, I wouldn't be that upset about it, but yeah. I I am honestly, personally, a fan of like just archetypes with their own like kind of hand traps. I think that's actually kind of cool. Notably because usually they do have some kind of condition. So if we go to Rika, for example, we have Rika, where is it? Rika Princess. So Princess here, this is technically a hand trap. So when your opponent activates a monster effect while you control a Rika monster, you unshuffle this card from either your hand or graveyard into the deck and tribute a plant monster, negate that effect. So this isn't really a thing you could just have, I guess. Well, actually, there might be exactly one situation where this might come up, I guess, but this requires you to control a Rika monster and a plant monster, technically. So if you control Rika, you can use this card as just a monster negate, right? Generic monster negate like Apollosa, which is pretty cool. And then it shuffles itself back, and technically you insert it again and keep doing this over the course of the duel, just several times, right? So pretty interesting. And then we also have as well with Blackwing, we have Chinook. If I could find Chinook. There we go. So Chinook is extra interesting because, well, this is a quick effect if you control a Dark Synchro monster. And this, because of this line here, the target monster loses 700 attack. This works as like, well, how do I put it? Well, this works in before damage calc, so around there. So it's one of those battle things with really specific timing. So certain cards, like notably Therion Regulus, can't deal with Chinook during that timing because it negates effect and not activation. So this can really be used in a interesting way because of that. And it's a hand trap, you know? So this negates a target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and you send a Blackwing Synchro monster or a Blackwing Dragon from your extra deck to the graveyard, so lose 700 attack, negate its effects. Yep. So archetypal like hand traps and stuff, I think, are pretty cool when done like right, I think, right? So more of a fan of these. There are a lot of interesting plays you could do with Chinook in my opinion. So this can also send from the field. So if you pair this with Blackwing Twin Shadow, you can use Blackwing Twin Shadow on your opponent's turn to trigger Whirlwind to summon back Chinook from the graveyard, which you send off of Vata, and then you can summon it back and then send it from field to the graveyard, or you can add it from a deck or graveyard to hand as well to use as just an actual hand trap in case like your board space matters. So there's nuance to this, and there are ways to play with this as well, and ways to do other things technically, right? So I find this pretty cool. And Bystials are a bit too generic for my liking. Like, imagine if Chinook could just use its effect just whenever. That's kind of just a Bystial, I guess. So yeah, a bit too loosey goosey with the restraints on Bystials in my opinion. But I mean, I guess they were kind of panicked from Tournament and decided, yeah, this will do it, you know. Yeah, if we print these cards, surely that will stop Tournaments, right? Yeah, the game becomes a little unhealthy until like we get enough strong cards where this becomes the norm. So if this were the norm, I guess, they become less degenerate and they just become kind of normal. So that's just kind of how power creep goes, I guess. So yeah, but until like the Bystials get power creeped, they're degenerate. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.